The invisible initiators, why the most painful people are secret spiritual triggers. We don't choose them. They find us. Not because we are weak, broken, or naive, but because our frequency acts like a beacon in the dark. When you're a dark chosen one, someone encoded with ancient memory, soul technology, and the capacity to walk both shadow and light, you become an energetic disruptor. You don't just enter a room, you recalibrate it. And most people, especially those still orbiting their own unhealed wounds, will feel that shift like a threat. They will either awaken or attack. And that's where the 7 shadow people come in. Each one of them is a gatekeeper, in a test, a mirror, a trap, and a teacher. Not because they are wise, but because they carry the exact distortion required to expose what's still unhealed within you.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
The first one you'll meet is the emotional vampire. You'll recognize them by how tired you feel after every interaction. You'll mistake it for compassion. You'll call it your light worker duty. You'll say things like, they just need someone to hold space for them. But over time, you'll realize this isn't space holding. This is slow, subtle, energetic drainage. These people don't want healing. They want attention. They want your power, your clarity, your fire, but without having to claim their own. They'll come to you with their wounds wide open, and instead of tending to their own bleeding, they'll wrap themselves around your energy like a bandage, and you'll feel useful, needed, important, until you don't. Until you feel hollow, foggy, and resentful. That's the moment of awakening. That's when you realize you were never their healer. You were their fuel source. The second shadow person is the silent competitor. This one is tricky because they don't announce themselves. They lurk in the realm of subtle energy. They act supportive. They smile at your wins. They clap when you rise. But underneath it all, there's a contraction in their field, a tightness, a frequency of control. You'll notice it when you share a breakthrough and they go quiet. When you release something powerful and they suddenly go invisible. They don't celebrate you. Not because they don't care, but because your expansion triggers their stagnation. They are addicted to being the most awakened in the room. They feed off being the smartest, the most intuitive, the most spiritually advanced. And when you start rising past their ego's comfort zone, they either subtly sabotage the relationship or try to outshine you. And if you're still carrying unhealed people-pleasing, you'll shrink, you'll dim, you'll sabotage yourself to keep them comfortable. That's the trap. And the lesson? To stop editing your expression for the sake of someone else's unprocessed insecurity. Then comes the third one, the false ally. They appear as your friend, your teacher, your mentor. They speak the language of light. They quote the texts. They perform the rituals. But underneath the robes, beneath the aura of love and light, is a hunger, a need to own, to possess, to control. You'll see it when you start stepping into your own power. At first, they'll encourage it, but soon they'll begin to question your path. They'll act concerned. They'll say things like, Are you sure that's aligned? Or Spirit told me something different for you? It sounds gentle, but it's not. It's a frequency of subtle domination. Because your power threatens the pedestal they built for themselves. You are no longer the student. You are no longer beneath them. And that imbalance breaks something inside them. This is where many dark chosen ones get stuck, because we confuse spiritual hierarchy with guidance. We think reverence means obedience. But true teachers don't bind you to their path. They bless yours. The false ally will never do that. Their devotion is conditional. Their love is transactional. Their mentorship is a leash. And the moment you try to run free, they'll twist your truth into rebellion. This is the moment you must choose comfort or sovereignty. Why do we attract these people over and over again? Why do they show up right as we begin to rise, as we begin to remember who we are? Because they are coded into our journey. You can't bypass them. You must face them. Because every single one of them contains a shadow you've yet to integrate. The emotional vampire reveals your unhealed savior complex. The silent competitor exposes your addiction to external validation. The false ally cracks open the part of you that still fears walking alone. These people are not just enemies, they are initiators. And until you see them as such, you'll keep calling your spiritual path a curse. You'll think you're being punished. But what if it's not punishment? What if it's your initiation into discernment? Let me ask you something most won't dare to. Who in your life feels good but leaves you empty? Who are you protecting with your silence, your shrinking, your self-abandonment? Who have you placed above your own truth, thinking it was humility when it was actually fear? Because until you name them not out of blame, but out of clarity, you cannot free yourself from their grip. And it is a grip, not always physical, not even always verbal, but energetic, subtle, invasive, and ancestral. Here is the activation. Sit with these 3 questions tonight. Write them down. Speak them out loud. Let them burn through your illusions. 1. Where am I leaking energy in the name of compassion? 2. Do I shrink around, and why? 3. Who am I still giving spiritual authority to, hoping they'll validate what I already know? Sit with those. Let them work you. Let them hurt if they must. Because only through that discomfort can you begin to extract the hooks. And trust me, there are hooks. But once removed, once released, something beautiful happens. Your field refines. You stop attracting tests. You start attracting truth. Not because you're perfect, but because you are clear. In the next part, we'll go deeper into the next 4 shadow people, the ones who don't just challenge your identity, but try to rewrite it. We'll expose the ones who mirror your deepest fears, seduce your unhealed ego, and try to bind your future to their need for control. These are the ones that don't just drain you, they reprogram you. And once you see them, you can never unsee them. The architects of your amnesia, how shadow people hijack your identity before you know who you are. There's a certain kind of shadow person that doesn't just drain your energy or compete with your light, they go deeper. They don't attack your actions, they go for your identity. They don't just want your attention, they want your narrative. And the most terrifying part? They often enter when you're still forming it, when you're still raw, still remembering, still unsure of your place in the world. That's what makes them so dangerous. They don't just slow your evolution, they rewrite your origin story. They become the architects of your amnesia, building a distorted version of who you are, so you never rise into who you were always meant to be. These next 4 shadow people aren't just exhausting, they're formative. And if you don't recognize them early, they'll build a version of you so wrapped in shame, fear, and self-doubt that you'll forget you were ever divine to begin with. The 4th shadow person is the identity thief. This one moves like a mirror, but with a twist. They study you. They mimic your voice, your style, your energy. They morph into a version of you that feels familiar but hollow. And at first, it feels flattering. Someone who gets you. Someone who mirrors your thoughts. Someone who feels like home. But over time, something starts to feel off. You'll notice they start speaking your insights before you do, boasting your downloads, echoing your frequency but without the soul behind it. You'll feel invisible in conversations, even when they're quoting your own truth. You'll feel erased, not because they're more powerful, but because they're feeding off your essence. These people don't just want to be around you, they want to be you. Not because they love you, but because they lack themselves. And if you're still healing from rejection, you'll confuse this mimicry with love. You'll think, they really see me. But what's actually happening is energetic theft. You're being downloaded by someone who hasn't done the work to build their own signal. And if you don't set boundaries, you'll start to feel like a ghost in your own skin. The 5th is the gaslighter in sacred clothing. This is the one who weaponizes the language of healing. The one who uses love and light to dismiss your truth. The one who tells you your anger is low vibrational, your grief is unprocessed trauma, your boundaries are walls, and your discernment is judgment. They speak like spiritual guides, but their frequency is control. Their goal isn't to help you evolve, it's to invalidate your evolution unless it passes through their framework. They try to convince you that your power is dangerous, that your intensity is a sign of imbalance, that your sovereignty is rebellion. And if you're still untangling yourself from shame-based systems, religion, family, old paradigm spirituality, you'll believe them. You'll start doubting your own instincts. You'll ask for permission before speaking your truth. You'll second-guess your anger, water down your fire, and spiritualize your silence. That's their plan. Because the more you question yourself, the more they can insert their version of you in its place. And this is where so many dark chosen ones lose themselves. Not through trauma, but through false light. Through the belief that being good is more important than being true. Then comes the 6th, the unhealed parent archetype. This isn't always your biological parent. It can show up in relationships, partnerships, even spiritual leaders. This person carries the frequency of conditional love. I'll love you if you obey me. I'll support you if you stay small. I'll be proud of you if you don't surpass me. They don't say it out loud. They don't need to. The energy speaks for itself. You'll feel it when you're about to take a leap, and suddenly their voice echoes in your mind. Are you sure that's wise? That's not practical. That's not who you are. They don't want to see you fail, but they fear what your success would reveal about their own inaction. And if you're still healing the inner child, you'll seek their approval like oxygen. You'll delay your mission waiting for their blessing. You'll perform your truth, hoping they'll finally say, I see you. I'm proud. But they won't. Because their role in your story isn't to affirm you, it's to push you into self-parenting. The moment you stop seeking their validation is the moment you birth your own inner authority. And finally, the seventh shadow person, the most seductive of them all, the soul made of delay. This is the one who feels like destiny. The one who enters your life like a cosmic collision. It's magnetic. It's familiar. It's otherworldly. You think this must be fate. And in a way it is, but not in the way you hoped. These people show up to mirror the parts of you that are still unintegrated. They are fragments of your own shadow, wrapped in the illusion of romance, purpose, or partnership. They reflect your potential, but they're not meant to walk it with you. Their role is to activate, not accompany. But because it feels so deep, so real, so synchronistic, you stay. You try to make it work. You compromise your mission. You delay your path. You trade purpose for passion. But over time, the resonance begins to rot. The connection becomes heavy. You feel spiritually stagnant, emotionally confused, and intuitively off. Because what once felt like fate has now become a frequency cage. And leaving feels like betrayal. But staying feels like spiritual erosion. This is one of the hardest choices a dark chosen one must face, choosing your mission over your mythic romance. Choosing your evolution over the echo of a love that was never meant to last. Now, let's go deeper. Why do we need to endure these people? Why is it written into the blueprint of the dark chosen one's journey? Because each of them holds a frequency you must transmute in order to become the version of yourself that cannot be hijacked. The identity thief teaches you to claim your originality. The gaslighter in sacred clothing teaches you to trust your own voice. The unhealed parent demands the birth of your inner mother, your inner father, your inner guardian. And the soul made of delay, they teach you that not all love is alignment, that not all passion is purpose, that to fulfill your sacred contract, sometimes you must walk alone. And that's the real lesson here. These 7 aren't just archetypes. They are mirrors of your becoming. They are the initiation gates cloaked in human form. And if you don't pass through them consciously, you will repeat them endlessly. Not because you're cursed, but because your soul won't let you ascend into full remembrance with those distortions still alive in your field. Let me ask you a question that might sting. Which of these 7 are you still entangled with? Who still holds a piece of your narrative? Who still lives in your nervous system, your choices, your silence? Because until you name them, they will continue to shape you. And until you extract their false story, it will keep looping in your aura, drawing in more of the same. From shadows to sovereignty, turning every toxic person into a map of your divine design. They were never just people. They were patterns. They were echoes of a deeper architecture, one that your soul agreed to walk into, not as punishment, but as preparation. You didn't meet the Shadow 7 by accident. They were assigned, encoded, and magnetized to you for a reason, to awaken what comfort never could, to strip away illusions that praise would never challenge, to initiate the version of you who doesn't just carry light but commands it. The path of the dark chosen one isn't about avoiding pain, it's about alchemizing it into power. And that begins by understanding that every toxic person you've ever endured was a map piece, a fragment that, when transmuted, reveals the coordinates of your divine design. Let's start with the deepest truth. They didn't break you. They mirrored your breaking point. The emotional vampire didn't steal your energy, they revealed where you abandoned your own boundaries. The silent competitor didn't dim your light, they exposed the part of you still negotiating your radiance for approval. The false ally didn't betray your trust, they surfaced your addiction to external spiritual authority. And the other four, they went even deeper. They rewired your perception of identity, love, and belonging, but only because you hadn't yet claimed the inner throne. Only because your soul needed to see itself through distortion before it could recognize its own signal clearly. So how do we begin transmuting these people into power? How do we stop seeing them as wounds and start reading them as keys? It starts with radical energetic ownership, not blame, not shame, but ownership. You must begin to view each encounter as a coded activation. Ask yourself, what was this person's frequency teaching me about my own field? Not their behavior, but their effect on me. What did they pull from me? What did they distort? What did they reflect that I wasn't willing to name? Because true sovereignty is not about shielding yourself from pain. It's about sourcing wisdom from the pain you've already survived. Let me tell you something that changed my life. The people who hurt you the most often carry the clearest reflection of the version of you you're still afraid to become. That's why their presence lingers. That's why their words echo. That's why the trauma loops. Because on some level, they didn't just violate your boundaries, they violated your blueprint. They entered a place in you that was still seeking validation, still outsourcing identity, still hungry for love in the shape of your earliest wounding. And instead of healing it, they fed it, until you noticed the pattern, until you chose to stop performing and start remembering. So here's the practice. Take each of the 7 one at a time. Write their name. Recall the impact they had. And then, instead of journaling about the story, write the code you were meant to extract. For the emotional vampire, the code is energetic containment. For the silent competitor, the code is unapologetic self-expression. For the false ally, the code is spiritual sovereignty. For the identity thief, the code is inner originality. For the gaslighter, the code is voice reclamation. For the unhealed parent, the code is self-parenting. And for the soulmate of delay, the code is mission over myth. These are not just lessons, these are upgrades. Every time you extract the code, you refine your field. You stop leaking. You stop looping. You start transmitting something new. And people will feel it. Your energy will shift. Your choices will become cleaner. Your silence will become louder than your words. You'll find yourself less reactive, less performative, less available for dynamics that once consumed your entire emotional bandwidth. And that's the paradox. They'll stop showing up, not because they changed, but because you did. Because your field no longer resonates with the frequency of distortion. But let's go even deeper. Once you've extracted the codes, you must install them. That means shifting how you relate to yourself. Ask yourself, if I had fully integrated this lesson, how would I speak? How would I move? What would I no longer tolerate? What would I create? This is how you rewire your reality, not by reciting affirmations, but by embodying the frequency that once attracted the opposite. You don't need to fight your old patterns, and you need to outgrow them. And that happens when your nervous system is no longer addicted to chaos masquerading as connection. Here's where the real magic begins. Once you've transmuted enough of these shadow people, you begin to attract a new archetype, the soul mirror. These are people who don't drain you, compete with you, or mute you. They amplify you. They don't reflect your wounds, they reflect your wholeness. Conversations with them feel like activations. Time with them feels like ceremony. They don't need you to be anything but fully yourself. And in their presence, you begin to realize you were never too much. You were just misplaced. Your frequency wasn't broken. It was just waiting to be witnessed by the right ones. But you won't meet these people until you clear your field of the ones who taught you who you're not. That's the trade. You must release the false reflections before you can receive the true ones. And that requires grief. Feel grief. Not just for the people you lost, but for the versions of yourself you betrayed trying to keep them. That's the holy mourning. That's the sacred release. And once you've wept those tears, once you've honored the pain, once you've thanked the shadow for its role in your rising, you are free. Not just from them, but from the version of you that needed them. Let me ask you something that will echo in your soul long after this video ends. What version of you did they teach you to become just to survive their love? Because that version doesn't need to walk with you anymore. You don't need to be the caretaker, the quiet one, the agreeable one, the smaller one. You don't need to be the one who keeps the peace at the cost of your truth. You don't need to be the version of yourself that makes everyone else comfortable while you slowly dissolve. That era is over. You are not here to survive love. You are here to become it, fiercely, fully, unapologetically. And that love begins with yourself, not the performative self, not the spiritualized self, but the original signal, the one that came through before the wounds, before the conditioning, before the 7 shadow people tried to teach you otherwise. In the final part, we'll go beyond healing. We'll enter the realm of embodiment. I'll show you how to walk in this world as someone who no longer attracts teachers through pain, but through resonance. Someone who no longer serves from emptiness, but from overflow. Someone who no longer tries to fix others, but who remembers the light in them by standing fully in their own. This is the return of your divine design. The full remembrance. The final activation. Becoming the signal, how to walk in a world that once tried to dim you and now can't look away. There's a moment quiet, unannounced, almost anticlimactic when you realize you no longer need to prove anything. The people who once drained you no longer hold your attention. The ones who competed with you now feel like echoes of an old frequency. The ones who tried to rewrite your identity, you look back with clarity, not bitterness. You don't need revenge. You don't even need closure. Because something radical has happened, you've become the signal, not the seeker, not the survivor, not the wounded healer, just the signal. Clear, undeniable, unmistakable. And when you become the signal, the world feels different. You no longer walk into rooms hoping to be seen. You see yourself so deeply, so fiercely, that people feel it before you speak. You don't need to announce your worth. Your presence broadcasts it. You don't need to defend your truth. Your resonance is the defense. You shift from reaction to radiance, from trigger to transmission, from waiting to walking as the one you came here to be. But let's be real, this transition is not glamorous. It's not a viral Instagram moment. It's not a grand awakening with music swelling in the background. It's subtle. It's sacred. It's often lonely, because when you become the signal, you lose people. Not because of drama, but because your frequency no longer matches their distortion. You stop being someone they can project onto, manipulate, or feed from. And instead of fighting to keep them, you bless their exit. You understand that their departure is not rejection, it's recalibration. Your field is no longer an open circuit. It's a sovereign frequency, and only those who resonate can remain. So how do you walk in this world now? How do you carry your frequency with integrity, clarity, and fierce compassion? First, you must stop performing. You're not here to entertain. You're not here to convince. You're not here to sanitize your truth so it's palatable to people addicted to comfort. You're here to become a living transmission, a breathing myth that awakens others not through argument, but through alignment. Every time you share your truth without apology, you calibrate the grid. Every time you hold a boundary without explanation, you collapse old timelines. Every time you choose your inner knowing over external approval, you remind the field what freedom looks like. Second, you stop rescuing people from their own awakening. You stop enabling their avoidance. You stop cushioning their collapse. Because you understand collapse is sacred. Confusion is sacred. Pain is sacred. You don't rob others of their necessary initiations anymore. You don't step in to be the hero. You become the mirror. You stand in your wholeness and let their reflection rise. And if they run, you bless their path. You trust their soul Because now you know true love is not rescue, it's recognition. Third, you create, not for approval, not for numbers, not for validation. You create because it's your nature. Your frequency demands expression. And when you're in your signal, your creations carry codes. Your words, your art, your presence, they don't just inspire, they activate. People will listen to you and feel something ancient waking up. They'll read your posts and feel seen in ways they can't explain. They'll sit near you and feel their own truth vibrating beneath their skin. That's not branding, that's resonance. And it cannot be faked. It cannot be bought. It can only be embodied. But embodiment requires maintenance. You must become the guardian of your frequency. That means ruthless energetic hygiene. That means saying no without guilt. That means leaving rooms that dull your light. That means checking in with your field before checking in with your followers. You stop leaking energy into proving, pleasing, or performing. You become full. And from that fullness you serve not out of obligation, but out of overflow. Let me ask you something most people never dare to. Are you willing to be powerful even if it means being misunderstood? Because that's the real test. Can you stay rooted in your truth when others project onto you? Can you remain soft when the world expects you to harden? Can you stay open when your past taught you to close? Because the signal doesn't bend, it doesn't dilute, it doesn't chase, it radiates. And not everyone is ready for that. Some will try to dim it. Some will try to steal it. Others will try to mold it into something safer, softer, smaller. But that's their story, not yours. You didn't come here to be liked. You came here to be felt. You didn't come here to fit in. You came here to recalibrate the matrix. You didn't come here to follow the path. You are the path. And when you walk like that, you don't just shift your own life. You shift reality itself. People will start asking you how you did it, how you healed, how you found your voice, how you stayed true. And you'll smile not because it was easy, but because it was worth it. You'll tell them about the 7 shadow people. You'll speak of the betrayals, the heartbreaks, the distortions, not as tragedy, but as technology. You'll speak of the moment you stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and started asking, "What power is this pain trying to return to me?" You'll speak of the day you realized the world didn't break you. It built you, brick by brick, lesson by lesson, shadow by shadow, until all that remained was the real you, the signal, the soul, the myth. And when you stand fully in that remembrance, something wild begins to happen. You become unshakable, not because nothing affects you, but because nothing defines you. You don't need to defend your identity anymore. You are your identity. You don't need to seek the light. You are the light, and not the soft, sanitized kind, but the fierce, feral, ancient light that dismantles illusions just by existing. This is your legacy now, not what you build, not what you leave behind, but what you transmit while you're still here. The frequency that enters rooms before you do. The resonance that lingers long after you've gone. The silence that speaks louder than your voice. That's what people will remember. Not your content, but your coherence. Not your performance, but your presence. So here's your final question, one that only you can answer. What would it look like to walk the rest of your life as someone who no longer negotiates their frequency for belonging? What would you create? What would you leave behind? What would you finally become if you stopped shrinking for people who never saw you clearly in the first place? Because now you know you are not here to endure shadow people anymore. You've outgrown that curriculum. You've graduated from distortion. You've extracted the codes. You've reclaimed your energy. You've become the signal. And now you walk, not to prove, not to save, not to be seen, but because your walk rewires the world itself. You are the one the shadows tried to silence because they knew your light wasn't just bright, it was contagious. And now that light is free, walk boldly, walk wisely. Walk as the frequency no one can unsee. The world isn't ready, but you are.